Hello, this is of course Dr. Jimmy again with my Horror Nights history for Halloween Horror Nights 18 Reflections of Fear Part 13. Ooh, scary 13. Ooh. Well, I was talking about scare zones back in Part 12 and I was talking about Streets of Blood, one of the niftier scare zones I thought that year. There was one more thing about Streets of Blood before we move on to other scare zones. The Rat Lady, our dear beloved Rat Lady, who has appeared every year at the event one way or another since Fright Nights way back in 1991. Yes, the Rat Lady was in this particular scare zone. They themed her up a bit to match the scare zone to some degree, changing her usual appearance, making her appear to be a plague victim. She was brought in a rolling casket on a cart, by characters who also looked to have the sort of Victorian London look about them, so that they fit in neatly with the Streets of Blood scare zone, and brought her in closer to where Finnegan's would usually be, wheeling her in that side, making her part of the whole Streets of Blood experience. In the same way that they've sort of themed her to certain scare zones since then, and they may do so again this year as well. I say, not to give anything away, but this year she may be, clowning around perhaps? Anyway, enough of that. Let's continue with the scare zones from 2008. Alright, the next scare zone was one of the most elaborate and fantastic scare zones in the entire history of Halloween Horror Nights, and really brought the theme of Halloween home in a remarkable way. In a way, it was also a bit of a sequel to a house from previous year. I remember in 2005 they had a house called the Skool, which was part of the whole Terra Quentis thing over Anne's Adventure, where the children of the various people of Terra Quentis learned how to dismember and kill, as they would eventually grow up to become Terra miners or body collectors or God knows what, demon cantina-ers or somebody, who knows what they would become when they grew up. The Skool house then was sort of a sequel in that regard, and yet in other ways was connected to the whole event in other ways, including legendary truth. As it turned out, the children were from Cary, Ohio, the very same place that Mary Agana originally hailed from before she opened up her clinic, we presume, somewhere in upstate New York. So, the scary Cary children also had a connection to a motion picture. Intriguingly enough, there was a motion picture called Trick or Treat, and I didn't go and grab the DVD to show it to you this time. Sorry, I should have thought of that before I started it. It's okay. Trick or Treat actually didn't come out in the cinemas yet. It was supposed to have been in the cinemas earlier, maybe a year or two earlier. It kept getting bumped. I don't remember what year it eventually aired, but it was after 2008. And it had been seen at festivals and had been known, and people knew about the artwork. And there was a school bus full of children who were trick-or-treaters who ended up going into a lake. And their ghosts were part of the theme of Trick or Treat, which involved a lot of other stuff, including an interesting group of teenage girls who dressed up in costumes, including Red Riding Hood and some of the fairy tale characters that we know from, and so in a way, Trick or Treat kind of fit in with both the schoolhouse and some of the other areas of the event as well. There was a scene in a forest with jack-o'-lanterns all over the place, jack-o'-lanterns everywhere in the movie. The central character in the movie was an evil little child named Sam, as in Sam Hain, get it? Samhain. But there was more to it than that. It was a very interesting movie. I highly recommend. A really nifty Halloween-themed film for you. But this had a strong connection. The creepy little trick-or-treaters. There was a schoolhouse itself, was built, an actual house, an actual schoolhouse in the Mel's Diner area at the top of Hollywood Boulevard. So it was almost like a miniature house, and maybe even a ninth house almost, sort of. 8.5 houses, you might think of that way. Really neat design with a bell tower, and on top was a weather vane in the form of a witch on a broomstick to give it an extra Halloween design to it. When you went into the scare zone, you actually went into the classroom, and there was a blackboard with stuff about Bloody Mary on it, and through the little classroom, then around into the playground. And in addition to just being in that area, the scare zone extended all the way down the entire length of the wood-shrouded Central Park area as well. And of course, that was the first year that was bedecked with jack-o'-lanterns in the trees and in the ground. An alleyway of jack-o'-lanterns glaring at you in the dark with fog and the little trick-or-treaters running around attacking you. Now, they chose diminutive characters, people who were shorter, not actual children, of course, because you must be at least 18 years old on the day you audition to be a character at Universal or Halloween Horror Nights. So all the characters were at least 18 years or older, but they were short people who were probably no more than about 5 foot tall to give an illusion that they were children. And these kiddies are running about in traditional Halloween masks, all sorts, everything from a little girl dressed as a bunny with a bunny mask, who actually was quite sinister with her big butcher knife and the bunny mask, and a whole bunch of other little creepy characters running about. What made it even more interesting was the school bus. The idea was the big school bus parked out in front of the schoolhouse, which of course fit in with the movie in a way. What they would do is the kids would come marching out of the Garden of Allah in formation, led by the schoolmaster, the only adult character in the scare zone, big schoolmaster. They would all get on the bus, and then once they're on the bus, the scare zone would start. You're walking by, you don't even know that the kids are on the bus. Suddenly the lights go on the bus and they're pounding on the windows at you and stuff. Then they come out in formation and form a little group with the headmaster there telling them, and then all of a sudden he gives them the order and they all run out and start attacking guests. Wonderful. Quite nice. And you could also at times come and find the children in the schoolhouse. The schoolmaster might be in the schoolhouse. It was all lots of fun. Really, really neat scare zone, and which, again, as I said, this year is when they elevated the art of scare zone way above what they'd ever done before. This location also, because of the Cary, Ohio Bloody Mary connections, proved to be a very important spot for clues when it came time for Legendary Truth. Which we'll get to again in a later video. Alright, now the next scare zone, the last of the 6 official zones from 2008, was Fractured Tales. Fractured Tales is located in Kids Zone area, and thus when you went towards the queue lines for both Scary Tales, which was in the parade building, as well as the Hallow, which was in Sprung Tent 1, you found yourself, you had to go through the scare zone to get to the queue areas, and the characters are roaming around while you were actually queuing up for those. And this was a connecting in some ways to the Scary Tales house, because you had fairy tale characters such as Little Red Riding Hood, although she was nothing like the warrior woman you saw in the house. This was a more traditional Red Riding Hood, but in her basket she had the head of the wolf. And then you had other characters running about, such as the Pied Piper of Hamelin, who had a rat in his mouth. But you also had a lot of characters who were not from fairy tales so much as from Mother Goose nursery rhymes, such as Old King Cole, for example, who was quite bloated and hideous, and Wee Willie Winky with his candlestick and his nightshirt, only he was all burnt up and in flames, unless it was Jack Be Nimble. I'm not sure. There was always some confusion whether it was Jack Be Nimble or Wee Willie Winky. Either way, he was all burnt. Jack Sprat and his big fat wife, a lot of other characters that were from nursery rhymes as well as fairy tales haunting the area, giving a twisted take on the children nursery imagination into a place of horror. Quite fun. An entranceway to the Fractured Tales were these 2 gigantic, almost scarecrow-like creatures with pumpkin heads. They were given the name Gog and Magog from the 2 giants or invading armies that attack Israel in the Book of Revelation. Why they chose those biblical names, I have no idea. That's just what A&D calls them. They were never, the names were never used as far as officially in the park, so the average guest had no idea they were called that. They would reappear, of course, in 2010 at the entranceway to a haunted house called Horror Nights: The Hallowed Past. So they've made a comeback over the years. Okay, so that then finishes off all 6 official scare zones. What joy. Now we can talk about those other things in the streets I told you about. There were 3 unofficial scare zones. One was kind of little. It was near the entrance of the park in the Lucy Plaza area, as some people call it, near the beginning of Hollywood Boulevard, where you would go through this before you got into the Asylum in Wonderland. Remember last year, Lady Luck had her photo op in this area. It was right about there you had the mirror people. There were lots of mirror-like things, standees and things of mirrors, but there was also these strange mirror people who had sort of almost mime-ish looks, but they had mirrors for faces. So when you looked in their face, you saw your own face. And they would do strange poses and weird things in their costumes. They weren't as scary as just kind of creepy and weird, almost performance art, maybe, Cirque du Oive or something, Cirque du Soleil, or Cirque du Freak Your Main. I mean, not Cirque du Freak, that was something else another year, but sort of that sort of thing, but done creepy, weird sort of acrobatic things they would do, and then of course it would also scare you if they could. But they're just weird. There were 2 others, of course, who were far more terrorizing. Of course, since 1993, one way or another, we've had chainsaw drill teams. In fact, there was a precursor to that in 91. I thought there was something in 92, but the more I research and look, my memories can get fuzzy after 20-something years. And there may not have been any sort of chainsaw thing in 92, but definitely since 93 there was an official chainsaw drill team as some sort of a part of the event every year, and sure enough this year they came back again. The chainsaw drill team were done up in mohawk and punkish looks so that they would fit in to theme with Doomsday, and they were located in the San Francisco area near the Doomsday, near the Disaster Q area where Doomsday House was located, with chainsaws to almost sort of continue the experience, because the last thing you see when you're leaving Doomsday was Saul with his mohawk singing on stage and chainsaws running around, and when you go outside there were more chainsaws, as the chainsaw drill team was located in that area. Similarly to the year before, when you had a chainsaw drill team right outside the Leatherface house in 2007, led by the sheriff. So there was another chainsaw drill team in the same area tying in with the house again. And the last one was a very interesting and original concept, what they call the zombie drill team. And this was clearly inspired by another film. Again, I have the DVD, but I didn't bring it out to show you, so take my word for it. Fido. Fido was a cute little film set in an alternate universe, post-zombie apocalypse, after all the zombies have been rounded up, and instead of, and now everyone's living like Pleasantville, in nice little white picket fence communities, and zombies have been domesticated. There's a zombie factory, or whatever you want to call it, plant, where they train the zombies, who are all wearing bright orange jumpsuits, like in prisoners would, who are in prison, so that they can be easily identified. And they have collars that control them so they can't eat you. And the idea is you get these zombies now as your personal slaves or servants, and so zombies now are in your house cleaning the house because they've been trained, obedience trained zombies, or cooking your dinner for you, or walking your dog, or whatever you might want to do. And the story of Fido involves a little boy who has a pet zombie. That's his. It's almost like Lassie, except instead of Lassie, what is it, Lassie? Is Timmy down the well? It's more like, what is it, Fido, the zombie? Is little Billy, or whatever his name was, in trouble, and and yes, you follow the zombie to save the little boy. That type of a wonderful story about a boy and a zombie. Of course, things go wrong, but eventually there's a happy ending. It's a cute little movie. Well, I guess inspired by that movie, they came up with a zombie scare zone of zombies in orange jumpsuit with the collars, just like the scenario in Fido, and they were being controlled by a zombie master who was a human, but he would control the zombies and have them take formation, and they would do, movements together, almost like Michael Jackson's Thriller. And then, of course, when he commands them, they go after the guests. And it was lots of fun to see the zombie scare zone. The zombie drill team, very original, neat scare zone. It was located near the Simpsons ride area, and there was one little boy who would go and taunt the zombies, and when they go after him, he would run. And I remember sitting there on a bench watching the kid run all the way down, God knows, all the way to Kid Zone, and then come creeping back, and then run all the way down again every time the zombies scared him. It was lots of fun. So it was a wonderful zone. So that covers all the scare zones now done, and we're done with this video. Next time we'll talk about shows.